Hey guys, this is my first NBA documentary. I hope you enjoy.
DiVincenzo a three. Bang! Bang! Knicks take a 1-point lead. Curry back to Iguodala. Up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. LeBron. It's one of those announcers.
Look at the history of Greg, a career that was devastating to injuries and didn't reach his full potential.
With the first pick in the 2007 NBA Draft, the Portland Trail Blazers select Greg Oden from Ohio State.
Greg Oden from the 2007 NBA draft class, standing at 7 foot, 280 pounds. He was a monster coming into the league right out of Ohio State University. He was drafted for the Portland Trail Blazers as the #1 overall pick, and he was compared by some people to Shaquille O'Neal. And this was an era of dominant center basketball for the ages, and Greg Oden was seen at that, soon to be devastated by injuries. Going to go all the way back to the beginning for Mr. Oden. And back in middle school, when he first played interscholastic basketball as a 6th grader, Greg Oden was 6'6". He was the tallest player on his basketball team, and he was seen as a giant for his age. People didn't see him as a regular school kid. He was seen as a different person. People always saw it basketball when it came to Greg Oden because of his height. Some people would say he looked like 40 years old at his early age. During his middle school basketball performances, he teared apart the competition. He made his impact known right out of the gate, being 6'6", tall as such a young kid, and he would make his presence known and soon to be NBA player. And going into high school, he moved to Indianapolis, Indiana, to go to Lawrence North, Indiana High School, and he made a star-studded impact as a high schooler, being named a McDonald's All-American and Mr. Basketball in 2006. He would lead Indiana High School to 3 state championships, and he was the main star on the team. He was a big dog. So many players were scared to face Greg Oden, especially in the paint. They couldn't get a shot off because he would block that shot, and then they would know for next time not to go in that paint. He was such a dominating defensive interior offensive presence that he made the game so much easier for his teammates and his team overall. Rim protecting, he was that superstar player coming in. And after his senior year in Lawrence North, Indiana High School, he was already seen as a #1 overall pick, but he got recruited to Ohio State University to play. He made his presence known. He injured his wrist. He dealt with some injury issues in college, but that didn't stop him from making a great impact as a college player. After Greg Oden made his presence known on the high school floor, being a sensational athlete at his high school, he would then enter the Ohio State Buckeyes organization and suffer a wrist injury. It wasn't the most conventional start for Greg Oden as he entered his college career. And he had to go through wrist surgery. He didn't make his debut until December 2nd of 2006, where he made his presence known right away for Ohio State, hitting 14 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 block shots. So many fans, even college basketball fans, were anticipating the Greg Oden debut because of how much of accomplishments he already recorded in high school. He would have been a first-round pick if he entered the NBA right out of high school. And in his Ohio State career, he would be a NABC Defensive Player of the Year, a Big Ten Defensive Player, and a first-team All-American. He would average 15.7 points per game, 9.6 rebounds, and 3.3 blocks. As I said earlier, most people compared him to Shaquille O'Neal, and that was a very, very high comparison. He would have his greatest games against the Florida Gators, was one of them, and Memphis in those games. And the crazy thing about all of this is that against the Florida Gators, this was in the National Basketball Championship game where Greg Oden decided to take full force for Ohio State. He got 25 points, 12 rebounds, 4 blocks, and he would make his defensive presence known, especially in the paint against the Florida Gators. They were only able to score 75 points, and to picture this all out in the bigger picture of things, Florida Gators had future NBA stars in Corey Brewer, Joakim Noah, who would be a defensive force for the Chicago Bulls, and Al Horford, who's already made a stabilized NBA career as one of the best post defenders in the NBA. Looking at all this, Greg Oden had the talent. He had the skill set to really succeed in the NBA, but the big problem for him as he started his Ohio State Buckeyes career was the injuries. And even just starting that out, he had that wrist surgery. Like it was already the premonition for Greg Oden, and soon would be to known of how devastating his NBA career would be. Having that performance in a national basketball championship televised game is special, and that's one of his greatest achievements. His Ohio State career just might be his best career accolades for his basketball career. I gotta mention that when Greg Oden played in Ohio State, he played with Mike Conley, and they also played in the same high school together. It's a crazy coincidence that they were able to play the same college. With Mike Conley, he was one of the highest paid players in NBA history, and for them to play together, they made a crushing duo. And before Greg Oden would enter the NBA draft for the 2007, after his freshman year, he was already dedicated to the draft. The Ohio State Buckeyes finished that season off 35-5. And with all their success, it just led the nobility and the scouting for Greg Oden such a higher regard for him to get that first overall pick. It only improved his stock for the draft, even though he was already seen as a high draft pick. And he'd get drafted to the Portland Trail Blazers, and this is where his NBA career would all start. Time for the NBA journey for Greg Oden. Greg Oden's NBA career started off terrible. He had to undergo micro knee surgery under his right knee, and he was forced to miss the entire 2007-2008 NBA season. And it wasn't until the 2008-2009 NBA season that he was able to make his official debut. Just going through that journey of missing that entire season, it was a huge experience for Greg Oden, and he faced a lot of perseverance trying to get back, trying to will himself back, especially in the NBA grounds. Even though he proved himself in college and in high school, NBA is a different atmosphere, and you have to be able to perform and stable some type of longevity to especially not get injured too much to be able to have a long NBA career. And that was something that Greg Oden would struggle to do going into his journey of recovery from the micro knee fracture surgery into the 2008-2009 NBA season, where he would finally start for the Portland Trail Blazers. Sadly, this 2008-2009 NBA season would be Greg Oden's longest NBA season, where he played 61 games for the Trail Blazers. This was a team stacked with Nicholas Batum, LaMarcus Aldridge, head coach Nate McMillan, where they tried to stabilize some mid-range shots, and a lot of their shots would come from inside. And they would finish off with a season record of 54-28, and Greg Oden would finally make his impact. And just like in college basketball, his debut was anticipated for the Portland Trail Blazers. They were hoping for Greg Oden to be that next dominant center, the next top dog, even with the terrible microfracture knee surgery that he had to have going into his debut season of the 2007-2008 NBA season. The Trailblazers still believed in him. They still believed that he had hope left to give for this Portland Trailblazers franchise, and they would finish second in the Northwestern Division. Greg Oden would average 11.1 points per game, shooting around 60% from the field, 8.5 rebounds a game, and 1.9 blocks. His interior defensive presence was still very great for this Portland Trail Blazers team. He would block shots. Players would be scared of him because of his size, and he would be able to contest a lot of shots in that interior range, helping Trailblazers establish that inside defense. January 19th, 2009. High in the 2008-2009 NBA season against the Milwaukee Bucks, where he scored 24 points. Great game, and a lot of his points coming from the post inside. The Bucks weren't able to defend, and Greg Oden was able to get pretty hot, where the Portland Trail Blazers fans were able to get a taste of what Greg Oden truly is. The saddest thing in Greg Oden's official NBA season is that it was through those 61 games played, he would suffer two separate NBA injuries, a foot sprain and a kneecap injury, one in December and then one in February. Now, this was devastating news for the Portland Trail Blazers and Greg Oden as he would try to further his NBA career. And just to think in his first season having that devastating season-ending injury, and then the next season getting two separate injuries, it really takes a toll on the body. And you could say that Greg Oden, throughout his career so far, has taken a lot of tolls on his body. He would average 8.9 points per game and 7 rebounds in the 2008-2009 NBA season before going on to his next season, in which the Portland Trail Blazers got eliminated at the end of the first round, and Greg Oden wasn't really able to perform too well in minute restraints in the playoffs for the Portland Trail Blazers, so he wasn't able to make too much of an impact there. Greg Oden's NBA career was shaping out sad in devastating ways early on. And now going on to the 2009-2010 NBA season, after the Trailblazers got eliminated in the first round of the playoffs, looking for a bounce-back season, Greg Oden is now available. He started 21 games for the Portland Trailblazers, and this was anticipated to be his breakout season, finally, for Greg Oden to have that great season. But unfortunately, that did not happen. He only averaged 8 points per game, 6.2 rebounds per game, and 2.3 blocks, shooting 60.5% from the field, and he winded up fracturing his left patella in early December, only 4 days after he made his career high in rebounds. And to give another season note, in November 23rd, 2009, he had his season high against the Chicago Bulls, and he had 24 points against the Bulls. A great all-around game showing his interior defensive mind and what he's able to do when he's available and how good he's able to perform on that day. But unfortunately, in the first quarter against the Houston Rockets of December 5th, 2009, he was forced to be stretched off the game, and he ended up fracturing his left patella, and he would end up missing the remainder of the 2009-2010 NBA season, and the Trailblazers were forced once again to go without Greg Oden, and Portland would end the season 42-40 as the 7th seed, also dealing with the injury issue of Brandon Roy missing time, and they did require Marcus Camby from the trade deadline, hoping to bolster up their front court and get some big body bands up in there, but that didn't work out. They got eliminated to the 3rd seed Phoenix Suns in the first round, 4-2 in the playoffs, and got eliminated in the first round once again. After Oden finished that Trailblazers season, he missed time from 2010 to 2012. There were setbacks with his knee injuries, requiring additional rehabilitation and recovery period for Greg Oden to try to get his life and his career back in order. And then in March of 2012, looking for his career resurgence, he gets an opportunity from the Miami Heat. The Heat give a chance to Greg Oden. He gets one last opportunity for the Miami Heat, looking for some backup center depths, and he signs a 1-year deal in March with the Miami Heat, and he plays around 23 games, gets some playoff minutes, and he plays pretty good, but unfortunately, the injuries still caused him to miss a lot of time, and he just wasn't able to stay available for such a long time of his NBA career. And after his stint with the Miami Heat, his short time there, he would play overseas, play some Chinese basketball around 2015 to 2016. Coach for Butler University Athletics, and he's still showing his passion, his love for the game of basketball. And even though he had a sad NBA career, you can still say he showed his talent. And for somebody to still say that they played in the NBA at a high level, it's still very gotta respect it, honestly. So that through all the tragedies, Greg Oden's career can be simplified overall as a career with high talent, one of the greatest defensive players he could have been, and it's one of the biggest what-if NBA stories in NBA history. It will go down as, and the fact that he got to play with LeBron James, I mean, that's pretty cool. But it unfortunately didn't turn out the way he wanted, but still suffered with the injuries. got his contracts, and just a big what if career. I hope you guys enjoyed this documentary video. This was my first NBA documentary. And I tried to provide some in-depth recap. Greg Oden was kind of an easy guy to do a documentary on since he didn't play that many seasons, but I still wanted to provide this to show a player that's not often valued and not often seen, and it should be a player that's respected for his career. And it was just an unfortunate circumstances that happened to Greg Oden. But in my opinion, he's one of the most talented defensive players the NBA has seen. Just didn't work out. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Remember to subscribe. Peace.